Good morning once again. Before I start, know that I was going to can this entire presentation and do 20 minutes on Blato's Donuts and the safari of taxidermy that exists in a bank here. That was what I was going to do today. Instead, we're going to talk about this. This is Maya. She awakes, stretches, and yawns. The room that she's in, the ambient temperature goes up because she likes her house to be a little bit warmer during the day than it is at night. The light in the room matches sunrise. While she's getting out of bed, her AI assistant is working silently. In the kitchen, her favorite brew is being put into her Ember mug. It will keep it the perfect temperature until noon because Maya's notoriously bad about finishing coffee before morning. Her AI assistant lets her know that she's got a flight booked to San Juan, departs at 10:15 today. It also lets her know that it's booked a seaside dinner reservation for her and her husband at 9 p.m. In the other room, her phone silently gives her the same notification. Her phone assistant also notices that there's traffic on her way to work, and so reroutes her way to drive to work and then moves her first meeting by 8 minutes and notifies everybody on that meeting. She's been having a tough time at work, so with her AI assistant, she has navigated the cost that she is willing to spend to go to San Juan for 4 days because she really needs it. Last night in the middle of the night, the flight hit that amount. The AI assistant purchased it, and she's going to be off to San Juan. Also in the middle of the night, her AI assistant and her boss's AI assistant worked together to look at her workload and approved the PTO while both of them were sleeping. And all of this happened while Maya was brushing her teeth and had yet to utter a word. I would like to welcome all you to the future. Except all of this stuff can happen right now. This is all things that you can do with AI. And so if I were to start this morning and ask you, what does it mean to be found for your destination? How would you answer that question? Because how you are found today is changing rapidly. People are more mobile and they're using, as we talked about yesterday, less and less of your website to find answers. They're doing what we're calling zero-click searches. If you don't know what that is, it's simple. It's that they got the answer to your question without ever visiting anything that you owned. And this is getting more and more ubiquitous as people are traveling throughout the planet. We're calling this the Copernicus moment. The moment that you figure out that your website isn't the shiny center of the solar system, just one tool among many that travelers are using. And so I ask you, if a traveler makes a decision today, but they never went to your website, do you actually care? If they showed up, they give you hotel revenue, they went to restaurants, does the web traffic even matter anymore? Because right now your website is less important and more important than ever because it's talking to two things. We're feeding the AI so that when the traveler asks the question, the AI knows to go to your website to get the answer and tell them where to go and when to do that. So I want you to imagine for a second, we're going to type this into Google. My wife and I want to take our kids on a trip in October to Minnesota. Our budget is $1,500. We love vintage diners, burgers, fall colors, near water, with an opportunity to kayak, plenty to discover outdoors that isn't in the brochure. Now, when you put this into Google, like I was talking about yesterday, understanding the culture of the traveler, when you put this into Google, this is, of course, what we get, right? A bunch of links to click on. Now, it's up to the traveler to click on all of these, to read all of these, and see if it matches with what they actually want to do. And you can understand very quickly why that wouldn't be very fun, even though we all became used to this for a long time. Instead, when they dump it into a large language model or an LLM like ChatGPT, they get something much more useful. Skip Minneapolis because of the budget, here's where you're going to do. Fly or drive to Duluth, stay there for 1 to 2 nights, go up Highway 61, go to 2 harbors, go to Grand Marais, stretch this out. And let me break this down for you. Here's what we're going to do in day 1. Here's what we're going to do in day 2. Now, automatically, you feel like this thing understands what I'm trying to do and where I need to go. And then tells me what I'm supposed to do on day 3 and day 4, even with images. So now I can visualize what happens when I get to Grand Marais, right? This is happening in Claude. Claude wants to give you itineraries. This is also happening in Google. They launched their biggest update to Google Maps this year. Now, one thing that they do is this immersive navigation, which is helpful if you're coming into a new town. It's very useful to understand how parking works if you've never been to that town. But the thing that we're worried about, or should be concerned about, is this Ask Maps, because again, has nothing to do with your website and gives them the ability to build an itinerary on their phone without ever visiting anything that you own. And they know that the 10 blue links aren't very useful. So they announced last week at their I/O event that this is what search is going to look like by the end of the summer. Everybody will be using Gemini inside of Google. So this will be prompted, and now we're doing natural language to ask it what we want. So for this morning, the three that I want to focus on are Gemini because of Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic and Claude. These are the three. There's a million to choose from. Brian and I could go back and forth for about 4 hours on the millions that you could choose from. But we're going to focus on these three. And we're going to understand that AI essentially does three things with your location. It first interprets the intent of the prompt. What did the traveler actually mean when they put that into their phone or their laptop? Then it goes, who can I trust? They asked a question about fall colors in Minnesota. Who should I trust? And it goes and scavenges the universe to find out what the universe says about fall colors in Minnesota and returns an answer. When we are talking about AI, and I know Brian talked about this with video, this is a vital channel for you right now. Not only because YouTube exists, as Brian is nodding in the back of the room, but because YouTube is owned by Google, which uses Gemini, which means it crawls this a ton. So if you are putting video on TikTok and Reels, you should also put it on YouTube Shorts because that's part of how the AI understands that you are a trustworthy source. No matter what your opinions on AI are, I always think it's a good idea that we're leaning towards the fact that we need to find trustworthy sources when we arrive in locations. And that is what's happening here. And we need to work to assume that the AI is going to visit us before the human does. And this is an important framing when you're thinking about AI and you're thinking about travel. The AI is going to show up first. What do they need to know? If they know nothing about our location, what does the AI need to know to tell that human being so that they show up here? So if on your website you aren't thinking that the way your destination shows up in that process with AI is the way that the traveler sees it, you are mistaken. They see the same thing. It's not like the AI can see beyond what's on your website. They see what the traveler sees. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean that if anywhere on your website right this very second, this is on your page, you need to change that. Because what does that even mean? Right? The AI is going to see that and go, great for families. What is that? How old are the kids? How much do they want to travel? What is their appetite for risk? Do they want to be outside or inside? What's their budget? Told you yesterday we worked in radio, right? 25, 54 females. One of the things that we would do if somebody was struggling with radio as a career, where you're locked in a dark box talking to yourself, telling jokes that no one laughs at, it's a struggle. For some people, we would put a cardboard cutout in front of them so they would know that they're talking to Sarah, who's 23 years old and lives in this apartment complex and drives a Subaru. So you would have an idea of what type of family you're talking to. So when you say great for families, we have to be much more specific. So let me ask you a couple questions this morning. At your last offsite that you had with your team, and you had all those great ideas, where do they live? Are they in a Drive, Slack, Teams, Threads, text, everybody's own journal? Where do those things leave? Because when we go to do these offsites, when we go to do things like this, we write down a whole bunch of stuff. And on Monday, you're going to use 1 or 2 of the things that you've learned in the last 3 days. But then there's going to be like 8 or 10 that you didn't use. Where do those things live, and how quickly can you activate on them? Because I want to pause here for a second and frame up what's actually happening in the AI space. Understand that AI, as we were talking about it right now, has learned from everything we've done before. Not everything we're going forward, right? We're all learning together in real time. So if you have those great ideas, those are great ideas that the traveler might want to know about. Come up with a system to store those ideas so you can get at them quickly. Now, if the person in your organization who quote unquote gets AI, they quit this afternoon, what happens? Now, we don't want them to quit. We'd like to keep them. Got it? Cool. If they quit this afternoon, what do we do? Well, first, we should have a backup for that person. Second, if you're in this room, you should know what that person knows and what's going to walk out the door. Because if you have a single person in your organization working on AI for the whole organization and they leave, you don't want to start back from zero. And then finally, last week as an organization, what did you measure? Traffic? Engagement? Something else? What did you report on last week? Or did you measure whether a traveler found you when they asked a question that you should own? Let me ask the question behind this question. Do you have a list of questions you should own? Because that's the new game that we're playing. If a traveler is going to ask about Minnesota, what are the questions that your location needs to own? This is a map that's recent to March of 2025. This shows you every human being on the planet and the amount of them that are using AI. This should be the sigh, everything's going to be okay moment of this, right? Because 82% of the planet has never had an interaction with a large language model, okay? This green is people who have used generative AI. Yellow is who pays for generative AI, and red is those who are doing active coding or using these agents. In the United States, this number is right around, if they're of working age, it's right around 35%, people who are actively using AI. If you work in marketing, as you saw yesterday, it can run the gambit anywhere from 50% of a room like it was yesterday to 90%, depending on where you go. So your lens of the world will change how you view how people are using AI. But the point of showing you this is that we're still in the bottom of the innovation curve, right? So we've got time to understand this space, but not a lot. So there are three kinds of DMOs when it comes to AI. The first one I'm calling the dabbler. This is somebody who's using one, or a team that's using one model, right? They make occasional pieces of content. It's a one-off. They might still be using a free tier, but know that that's, to borrow something from Brian, right? Hope is not a strategy. Neither is a free tier of AI, right? They know that they need to move off a free tier because that's not the strategy anymore. So these are the dabblers. The producers, these are the ones who are using multiple tools. They're making a lot of content faster, but they're not necessarily building it about how AI retrieves that content. But they are making a ton of content for the traveler faster than most. Aspirationally, you're looking at this. This is somebody who understands, or a team that understands. They are built to be retrieved. They have clear entities, consistent signals out to both the humans and the AI. Structured content so that everybody understands it. Persistent memory, and then measured by not just traffic, but also answers. The important part here, friends, is we're not getting rid of traffic. We're just adding to it. It's yes and. Not just traffic, but present in answers. Because the real risk is if you haven't picked for your organization what the LLM is because you're worried you're going to pick the wrong one, that's the wrong question. The real risk is not having an opinion on AI or a procedure or a policy, because people in your organization are using AI. I will use us for an example. Our enterprise solution is Microsoft Copilot. We spend thousands of dollars a month for employees who buy Claude, buy ChatGPT, buy Midjourney, because they're off the range, doing whatever they want to in these other models, right? That's what happens when you don't have a uniformed structure, right? You get this accidental infrastructure, and that can put proprietary information out there. It can put your email lists out there, things that you don't want AI to ingest because you don't have a policy about it. Okay, I want to play a quick game in the few minutes that I have left that I'm calling Where's the Campaign? I wanted to give you one solid thing you could walk away from today that you could do this afternoon. We all run campaigns, and our campaigns all feel a little bit like this, where all of the pieces are everywhere. And then all of a sudden, somebody in leadership or somebody on the board wants to know how the campaign's going, and you've got to scramble through inboxes and Google Drives and meet with the freelancer and figure out where that stuff lives. Let's fix that. Let's use three products. We're going to use Claude, we're going to use HubSpot, and Gemini. If you don't use HubSpot, don't worry. Put whatever your email client is in there, right? If it's MailChimp or Constant Contact, whatever that is, put that in the middle spot, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to feed it our destination brief. Who is the target traveler? What's our budget window? And ask it to build the entire campaign. Be specific. Don't ask it for a list of ideas. Have it build the whole campaign. Give it you a theme, audience segments, messaging for each, email sequences, online content for social, 6-week rollout. And one of the things that Claude has is what's called a long context window. And all that means is fancy AI speak is that it can reference all of the things that you've been talking to it for a much longer time than the other models. They're catching up, but this one's context window is pretty great. So that will keep the strategy coherent. Then we're going to go to HubSpot or whatever email client you have and create content that's personalized to where that person is in the traveler journey. We're going to run A and B versions of those emails and find out the one that converts in real time and adapt. Also, for those of you, if I'm going too fast, you will have the whole deck. So if you've missed something, don't worry about it. You'll get the whole thing. And then finally, we're going to put it into Gemini, right? We're going to drop that doc into Google Docs, turn it into a 12-page brief, and then more importantly, that leadership summary and a checklist. That means everybody in the organization is singing from the same song sheet. And this becomes important because you heard about it this morning. What are we trying to do? We're trying to create things that are scalable and repeatable. Scalable and repeatable. And you don't want to start the process over every time you want to run a campaign. I want to share with you one more thing, and that is Notebook LM. Also another Google product, but this product is the one that we use a ton of. We no longer do internal PowerPoint decks without using Notebook LM because it makes it for us. Because who cares what your internal decks look like? You're just trying to share information. So my entire team has been instructed that it goes into Notebook and you present that way, or chat or whatever, but Notebook is the best at making these sort of PowerPoints. So if you do a ton of presenting internally and you're spending hours and hours and hours and hours making pretty presentations that half the people pay attention to and the meeting's 45 minutes long, this will save you a ton of time. Okay, so what can you do today? Step 1, audit your website. The very first thing we're going to do is look for things like this. An unforgettable destination for everybody. A sentence that says nothing. Every time we find a sentence that says nothing, it goes on the list. Because in the age of AI, we're looking for clarity over cleverness. We're not writing prose anymore, friends. We're telling them what to do. Where are the visitor locations? I don't need it in a haiku. I just need the address, right? Clarity over cleverness. And then we're going to line our signals across the platforms. Yes, I have all of the platforms up there. No, you don't need all of the platforms. But if you have luxury travel on part of your Instagram and family travel on the other part, the great news is follower accounts don't really matter anymore. Start 2 accounts. It's the content that they're looking for. And you need to make sure that for AI's sake that you've got a consistent signal across your main channel so it knows what you're for and knows what to trust you for, because these are 2 different groups. Next, we're going to take whatever those questions are. This is the one I used at the beginning, but whatever those questions are that you're supposed to own, we're going to dump those into these AI tools and figure out which one of them likes us and which one of them don't. And the ones that like us, we're going to try and figure out why. And the ones that don't, we're going to make more content that answers that question so they find us. And we're going to do this one, at least initially, a lot to understand where we are winning and where we are owning those questions. And we're going to move towards dexterity over literacy. Literacy is knowing what these tools are called, but dexterity is knowing when to move when it shifts, and it's shifting at all times. Because like I said yesterday, if you're the type of person that wants everything to stay the same, this is going to exhaust you. Because this is as bad as AI is ever going to be. It's only going to get faster. It's only going to get more powerful. If this sort of curiosity excites you, you're going to have all the energy in the world. Because again, you still have time. And we all know in this room that the influence begins before the click, and AI is just one more tool that they're using to come visit us. Speaking of visiting, come visit me and my friends back of the room. And if you have any questions, here's my information. It was a pleasure to be here. I have more donuts to eat. Have a wonderful morning.